Hello and welcome to this video, which will show you the most basic fundamentals, the concepts of something called Microsoft Azure WebJobs. Microsoft Azure WebJobs are now generally available in the Azure platform, and the purpose of these is to provide you with a very easy, low barrier entry way to run your programs in Azure, run your code in the cloud, to do batch processing or background processing as part of your deployments of Azure websites. You can choose to deploy them with websites, you can choose to deploy them without websites, but it's really easy to get started, and this video will show you the fundamentals. My name is Magnus Martinsson, and I'm a Microsoft Azure Most Valuable Professional, and I've been part of the advisory board for what was codenamed Simple Batch since it started, and it is now available as the WebJobs in Azure. So if you need to contact me and have any follow-up questions, please feel free to do so. Before we get started, I want to draw your attention to the Global Azure Bootcamp, which will happen for the third time in April of 2015. We are not ready to announce the exact date today, but I will go back and add show notes and links to from these videos to the Global Azure Bootcamp. It'll be in April, and all over the world, the Azure communities, the Azure enthusiasts will come together and create a grandiose, huge event, and I hope you will be part of it. Time for the feature presentation. In order to host a web job in Azure, you actually need an Azure account, of course, and you need a couple of storage accounts. I will show you the preview portal of Azure. You can use the current management portal if you want to, but it works as well in the preview portal, and therefore I will show you in here that I have created before this video a couple of storage accounts. They are completely empty. One will contain my storage data, my WebJobs data that I will use. The other one will gather the diagnostics of running WebJobs, and I will show you how to connect these two storage accounts to my WebJob. Here's an empty instance of Visual Studio, and I will now create the template web job. All I do is I say File, New, Cloud, Azure Web Job, and I hit OK. This creates what essentially is a console application with a main method and something called a job host. The job host is part of the Azure WebJobs SDK, and I will show you that this is in a NuGet package which is referenced in here. So the host is created an instance of, and you do a run and block call to it. This is very similar to creating a service host for a VCF service, for instance. I of course also will need an actual web job function somewhere to run, because this is just an empty host. I will show you this in a second, but first I will show you the NuGet package reference to WebJobs, which is automatically included here. It's called Microsoft Azure WebJobs. This stuff is the preview version, of course. I don't know exactly what the release number will be, probably 1.0, but I'm recording these videos just before the actual GA release, and therefore I still have the beta version. In order for me to connect to my storage accounts, I will need to enter a couple of settings into the app config file, and they are already marked for me here. And there are two connection strings, one called the Azure WebJobs dashboard, which is the connection string to my diagnostics data, one called the Azure WebJobs storage, which is the connection string to my storage account, which I will show you how I will be taking advantage of soon. These are the two assets that I showed you in Azure. I have the my connection strings pasted in here already, so I can just paste them right into my code. Now everything is actually ready to run. All we need now is an actual web job. We have a configured host all set up to go, and now we need a web job. Conveniently, the template provides us with a web job method. This is just a public static void method, which is marked, the parameter here is decorated with the queue trigger attribute. This queue trigger tells us that there will be a queue in Azure, which we will call Hello World. The Hello World queue up in Azure, in the storage account that we reference, will contain messages, and whenever anyone enters a message into this queue, this WebJob method will be invoked. There's also a second parameter here called log, and that's a way for me to send messages to the diagnostics. This is a diagnostics message, and I will add the message that I sent in right there. So I can send messages, custom messages to the diagnostics from inside of my WebJobs. I will show you this in a minute. This is actually everything we need. I can now deploy this WebJob to Azure, but testing is also essential, of course. And again, this is a console application, so I can just simply place a breakpoint right here and let this WebJob debug right on my local host. So if I hit F5 here, this job host will launch, and it'll go to the run and block statement and say that the job host has started. Now all we need is a message inside of that queue, but actually this queue does not even exist. I will show you inside of Azure Management Studio my two storage accounts. And if I drill down to the WebJobs demo account where I will have my WebJobs data, you can see that there are no queues. So let's say that I go and create myself a Hello World queue right here, and let's add a message to it. Add a test message into the queue. We'll wait a few seconds. And as you can see, the call is forwarded. There is a call to the process queue message function. Now, this is because I launched my WebJob host, and it contains my WebJob, and the message that comes in is the test message that I wrote. Now, if I hit F5 here, this will just process the message, and everything is done. And it says inside here of the host that I have now processed the message. So that's really nice. And there's one more thing that I like to do. Deploy my WebJob, of course. So I'm going to take this WebJob and deploy it into Azure, into a brand new Azure website. It couldn't be simpler, because all I need to do is go and right click my WebJob and select Publish as Azure WebJob. I get this dialog box where I can choose to run my WebJobs on a schedule, on demand, or as in our case, to run it continuously, which is the normal mode for when you're listening to a queue, to have your WebJob always running and be invoked when there's a message on the queue. When I say OK here, I get a downloaded NuGet package reference, one more, an additional one, which will save my settings here in a nice little file. Now what I want to do is create a new Microsoft Azure website. I will select the demo account, and I will say WebJobs GA demo. It's actually available, this site, and I will put it in West Europe. This creates now an actual website in Azure where I can host a web application, but I'm not going to. I can host a web application and a WebJob. I'm not going to. I'm simply only going to host the actual WebJob. So I will hit publish, and the publish activity will launch to deploy my WebJob into Azure. Once the WebJob has been deployed using common standard web deploy into Azure, you can browse to it won't help because it actually doesn't have a UI, but you can switch over to the portal again and look at the WebJob as it is deployed inside of the portal. When I do that, I need to go over to my websites and see that there is the WebJobs GA demo website now deployed, and it only contains one WebJob and nothing else. It's called WebJob 1, and it's right there, and it's continuously running in Azure. Now this means that if I go back to my queue here and see that the queue is empty, no messages in there, I can now go and say second test now in the cloud, and hit save. You can see that there's, whoops, it's already gone. It's already been processed. I couldn't even see it. That's how fast it was. Okie dokie. Let's see what happens. Let's see where the data winds up. By clicking on the logs link here inside of the portal, I will jump over to the WebJobs hosting, and where I can see the diagnostics data. And it tells me that I need to configure the dashboard to have access to my diagnostics. This is just a one-time thing that you need to do. You need to set this thing into configuration. So let's go and quickly do that. In the site settings, we need to add a connection string with that name. It needs to have a value, and it happens to be the same diagnostics connection string that we set in our code. I'll copy that out, paste it in there, and make it a custom connection string. Hit save. Now my WebJobs dashboard can gain access to the diagnostics data, because that's not automatic. But you only have to configure this once. I go back and refresh, and we should now see this dashboard containing the actual function. And the function has been invoked. I can replay the invocation of the function, and I can see how long it took to run it. And I can actually go back and see all of the invocations in the invocation log here, that there are actually two successful invocations, one when I run locally and one when I ran in the cloud. I can go to either one of them and see the diagnostics data of them. I could see that the incoming message was second test now in the cloud, and there was also a log parameter, which means if I toggle the output here, I can see my diagnostics message as well that I wrote from inside of my web job. So that's about all for this demo. It's a pretty cool first example that this template has, that you can just simply configure with your storage accounts and go ahead and deploy. And immediately you have a web job running in Azure. I realize, of course, that your head is now spinning with all the cool things you could do with Azure WebJobs, and I would agree. Azure WebJobs is extremely powerful, and I will show you in a couple of more videos how to use additional features of Azure WebJobs. Thank you for listening.